we have a podcast.
Diving deep into all things Texans, both on and off the field. Here's Sean Pendergast and Pro Football Hall of Famer, the General, John McClain. Welcome to Houtopia.
Hey everybody, welcome in to the Houtopia Football Podcast, fresh off the practice field out at the Methodist Training Center at NRG Stadium. Good to be with you. This is our Wednesday edition. It's a mailbag. We're going to do a mailbag a little later on in the episode, houmailbag@gmail.com if you want to send us a question. I am Sean Pendergast, one half of Payne and Pendergast, mornings on Sports Radio 610, and I'm joined by my co-host and my good friend, the Hall of Famer, and our senior columnist at sportsradio610.com, John McClain. John, good afternoon. How you feeling after day one against the Miami Dolphins on the practice field today?
Yeah, both coaches said it was great for each team. It was topped off by Jalen Petrie's pick six, in which he took it to the house down the right sideline on the last play, and all of his defensive players chased him off the field, through the gates, almost to the opening of the Houston Methodist Sports Center.
Yeah, it was a cool ending to it, and the team was fired up. You were there for the whole thing, John. I got there about a little over halfway through because I was on the air. But from what I saw while I was there, and from what I heard about, read about, and talked to people when I got there, sounds like CJ Stroud is the one that I get asked about all the time by people, as do you, I'm sure. So the sense I got was overall kind of an up and down day of practice for CJ Stroud. Had some good throws, had some throws he'd like to have back. What did you see out of CJ Stroud today at the joint practice?
Truthfully, Sean, they were on separate fields, and I was watching Tua Tagovailoa throw against the Texans secondary and go against the defense. I didn't see one pass CJ Stroud threw since they were on separate fields. But, that's what people were saying afterward when we were milling around. He was up, he was down, just like you would expect a rookie quarterback to be.
Yeah, from what I saw, and this has been a general theme, I think, too, at practice, John, is that I'm going to be real anxious to see, honestly, the regular season, forget about the preseason, but when the regular season gets here and he's starting, just how things go when defenses are throwing different disguises and things at him. It does seem like he is pressured a lot. The offensive line has not played great throughout the preseason, for sure. It felt like every throw he was making today, there were very few throws that he even got off, like in rhythm, the way the play was designed today, from what I've seen. Either he was flushed out of the pocket and he would just tuck the ball and run, or he was flushed out of the pocket, would roll to his right and his left, and then would throw to – his throws would be basically things that was not how the play was drawn up. It was once you're flushed out of the pocket, it's a scramble drill. I guess the good news there is he's shown a really good ability to throw on the run that maybe we weren't totally sure about that he had, because he never really had to do that very much at Ohio State. And in this offense, even when this offense is working correctly, there's a lot of design bootlegs and things like that. So I guess that's my concern with CJ's. He's not getting much of an opportunity to do things the way they're designed because of the offensive line. And even sometimes when the protection holds up, he's holding on to the ball for quite a bit. And I don't know if that's because guys aren't getting open or because he's not sure what he's seeing yet. But those are my concerns so far with CJ.
My concern is the backup offensive tackles and the interior line right now. The offensive line is the biggest concern on the team. We've heard that story before, almost like every year, which is why they've had 4 line coaches in 4 years. So he's got to be better against the Dolphins on Saturday, and then he needs to be better next week against the Saints in joint practices and in the game to make him ready for Baltimore, or he's going to get killed.
What did you see? So, John, you were watching just to put a bow on the offensive side of things, I got there about 10:20 probably. So I got there for the second team session of 11 on 11. I want to get your thoughts on what you saw on the other field with the defense in a second, but just to put a bow on the offense, I got there, John, and within the first 15 to 20 plays, Tank Dell had 3 touchdowns. Tank Dell might be the story, at least offensively, the story of this training camp so far.
I'm going to write a column about watching Tua Tagovailoa and Tyreek Hill and wondering if 3 years from now, C.J. Stroud and Tank Dell could be collaborating on big plays like that. And Tank Tank is 5'8", 165. Where Tyreek Hill's short, but he's muscular.
He's stocky.
He's fast.
Yeah.
And they love to get him in space, and that's what Bobby Sloak is doing for Tank Dell as well. So Tank's the only guy on the team that can go to the house every time they touch it. So they need to make sure he touches it a lot.
Yeah, John, I'm gonna bookmark that article that we're doing an article with the whole Tua and Tyreek Hill comp with Stroud and Tank Dell in week 2 of training camp. I'm gonna bookmark that article, John. And if Tank Dell turns out to be a training camp sensation, I'm gonna read that article back to you in 2 years and say, remember that time you were comparing Tank Dell to Tyreek Hill? And he'll become an all-time. He'll be the Lestar Gene Hall of Fame, John, of training camp overachievers.
Yeah, I'm not comparing them. I'm looking ahead 3 years and wondering what if.
Yeah.
Considering they're such similar styles, Tank's got a long way to go to be as productive as Tyreek Hill.
Oh, of course, and just I'm being somewhat facetious. Yeah, I like Tank Dell's. I think Tank Dell's going to be a really good player. Facetious. I think Tank Dell's going to be a really good player for this team. It's been exciting to watch. Yeah, excitement. Yep, no doubt. Yeah. Let's think about that. Like, when was the last time they had a guy like that, John, on this team, like Tank? Because even the playmakers on this team at the wide receiver position haven't been the same playing style as Tank Dell. And I know,
home run hitters. Andre Johnson wasn't, and DeAndre Hopkins wasn't. Yeah. They were great and Hall of Fame worthy. But Tank, boy, he's the first guy I can remember who consistently has a chance to score touchdowns every time he touches the ball.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun. So, John, you focused mainly then on the Texans' defensive side of the ball in the 11-on-11, watching Tua and the offense go against the Texans. What did you see in your time out there today?
Christian Harris made a great interception and had a pick six. He stepped in front of a receiver. He looks really good in training camp. You know, he missed his time last year. He was hurt. Came on at the end of last season. They expect big things out of Christian Harris, and coverage is a big part of it. Now, when they got worked out working on the red zone, I thought, especially on fade routes, Tua Tagovailoa tore him up. Tell you the neatest thing I saw today. I stuck around to talk to Andre Johnson, and Derek Stingley Jr. and John Mechie III were on the field by themselves 30 minutes after practice ended, just Mechie working on get off the line of scrimmage with Stingley covering him and then explaining to him why he did what he did. And D'Amico was standing there talking to Andre Johnson, and he saw it. You know, coaches love that. It was just a sight to behold.
Yeah, they've been doing a little. Mechie and Stingley have been kind of I don't want to say attached to the hip, but they've been doing a lot of that stuff. You're right. It's really cool to see. I think it's indicative of the type of players that they're clearly trying to bring in, John. You know, like they're clearly targeting football junkie types that are just, you know, into putting the extra work in. I know a lot of teams pay lip service to that. I do feel like there's something about these guys that Caserio for the last 2 years and then D'Amico putting his touches on it this year. It does seem like they've got guys like that. Anybody other than Christian Harris stand out for you on the defensive side of the ball, John, or anything you saw today that stood out?
Steven Nelson made a couple of good plays going up against Tyreek Hill. I was hoping Hill would line up to the Stingley side and they could go at it, but he didn't. They were on opposite sides.
All right. So the Texans have one more padded practice on Thursday, and then Saturday they play 3:00 kickoff. John, what are you hoping to see? Like, what are your must-sees? Like 2 or 3 things you must see on Saturday, whether it's a performance level from somebody or playing time or whatever the case may be.
We must see the starters playing more, especially Laramie Tunsil and Shaq Mason. They have got to improve up front to give C.J. Stroud time to throw. That's what I want to see. Protection for Stroud where he has a minute to throw and make decisions, not having to run for his life every time he was throwing, which not every time, but almost every time in that first game victory over New England. Want to see if they stop the run for the second game in a row. Got to call them up on sportsradio610.com about that and about how good the run defense was under the circumstances compared to how bad it's been the last 4 years. So I want to see that. And I want to see if Stingley gets a chance to cover Hill, how he covers him, because that's why they got Derek Stingley Jr. Third overall. You're supposed to be able to cover the opponent's best receiver all over the field in man coverage.
Yeah, that's the big one for me is that last one. Like I'll always be excited to see CJ Stroud and see him play. I mean, he's the future of the team. But as far as this particular opponent in this weekend, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are the two top wide receivers for the Miami Dolphins. I hope we get more than just a couple series out of both the Dolphins offense and the Texans defense, because however they end up matching up, but Nelson and Stingley against those two wide receivers, that's my marquee matchup. You know, if I were putting a WrestleMania card together with all the matches and everything, my main event would be those two corners against those two wide receivers this week.
I'll be surprised if Waddle plays. He got hurt and they're holding him out of these practices. So I guess they're not going to play him in the game, even though he's from Hill, went to Episcopal High School. Yep. That would be great testing for the defensive back, specifically Stingley. And it kills Waddle not to be able to participate. Yeah,
no doubt about that. So yeah, that would be one of mine. And John, I'm anxious to see Will Anderson this weekend too. Teron Armstead, the left tackle for the Dolphins, he's a good player. I don't think he's not Laramie Tunsil. Laramie's the best pass protector at left tackle in all of football. Teron Armstead is that level of tackle he's a good tackle. He got paid last year. Will Anderson not beating Laramie Tunsil in practice, to me, is not a huge deal at this stage of his career. And even if in this game against the Dolphins, he doesn't get a sack or anything like that, I'm not going to freak out. But Teron Armstead is the level of tackle. If we expect Will Anderson to be what we think he can be as a rookie, that's a level of tackle you need to win your fair share against. There's no crime as a rookie in losing to the best pass protecting left tackle in football in practice, losing against him. But you got to get yours against the other, the other 80% of the tackles that are below that cut, 80 to 85%. You got to win some reps there.
Great points. And I don't know how much he'll play, of course, but all that testing is great when he's going against guys like Tunsil in practice and Armstead. And he needs to take the next step and get more playing time.
All right. You ready for some mailbag questions, John?
Always.
We'll do some mailbag again. Next practice is Thursday, joint practice against the Dolphins, game on Saturday, 3:00 kick, noon pregame, Texans countdown with me and Seth Payne. And then Clint Stoerner and I have post game for you. That's all on Sports Radio 610. So be sure to be tuned into that. If you're driving around town, out and about, if you're not watching the game, be sure to tune in and get it on Sports Radio 610. Then we got Saints week next week, and then the regular season will be here before we know it. If you want to email the show, HOU mailbag @gmail.com. That's HOU mailbag @gmail.com. We start with Marcus and Katie, and he says, John, the other teams who drafted quarterbacks high in the draft, Carolina, Bryce Young, the Colts, Anthony Richardson, they've named them as their starter for week 1. When does D'Amico join them? Why is he waiting?
Who gives a damn what other teams are doing?
Marcus and Katie gives a damn,
Marcus,
John.
That's ridiculous. He is the starter. Why do they have to name him? Is that going to make you feel better if they name him? No, he's the starter. He's been the starter, and he's going to have to play himself out of that job. So I think D'Amico or Caserio, somebody said they don't expect just a big announcement. He's our starter.
Caserio said that on our show on Payne and Pendergast.
Nick said that. It's true.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not going to be a big announcement. It's going to happen organically. He literally, John, when he said that to me and Seth that morning, the previous practice, CJ and Davis were splitting reps evenly. Literally that practice, the day that he said that to us, he said it to us at 7:30. They were practicing at 9:00, and that was the first day where CJ basically got all the reps with the ones. So it happened organically sometime between Payne and Pendergast and that practice that day. But fans, John, they want to hear the team say it. I don't begrudge Marcus. I agree with you that it's not a big deal. CJ, barring injury, CJ Stroud is going to be the starter in week 1 at Baltimore, and I can't wait to see how that goes. But you know how fans are, John, especially as kind of, as much PTSD as we have over quarterbacks here over the last few years. That's all. All right, next one, John. Here we go. Dave Howard frequent listener to the podcast, frequent emailer to the podcast. I've seen people comment on the fate of Davis Mills if he is, as expected, the backup QB this season. Some think he might be traded before the season or likely mid-season to a team that has an injury. He's in the third year of a 4-year rookie contract. He maxes out at $1.3 million next season. I say keep him unless someone makes an offer that can't be refused. What say you, John?
Dave, I don't see Case Keenum being an emergency quarterback very long at number 3 at this stage of his career. I know that's not why he was signed in free agency. He's a good guy. He's not going to complain about it. He's like having an extra coach. But would he have come here if he's going to be the emergency quarterback all season? And I guarantee you he had other offers. So I think when the time comes, if Stroud does well enough to keep the job, and there's a chance they may have to set him and give him a different look, let him look from a different vantage point, same way Davis Mills did his rookie year, and he came back and he was a different quarterback. But I wouldn't be surprised if before that deadline, when a playoff team loses a quarterback and they looking around for a veteran, he had some really good games his rookie year, had maybe one last year, but I could see them trading him for a conditional pick, and it just depends on how desperate the team is and what that team thinks about him.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to trade him just to trade him. I mean, I don't know what conversations they had with Case, but like you said, John, Case knows the deal. He's been around the league a while. I'm going to tell you this right now. If CJ Stroud starts the season in week 1 and there is some point during the season where they need to yank him so he can sit and watch because it's not clicking for him, people are going to freak the hell out. They're going to freak out because, John, think of I'm just thinking off the top of my head, like what of the good quarterbacks now, have any of them ever had to be pulled because the game was just too fast for them early on in their career? Like I'm literally asking, like, I remember Josh Allen.
I don't have a clue. I'd have to think about it.
Josh Allen, like
everybody's career.
Yeah, no, I'm not expecting you to. I didn't know if you could think of one off the top of your head is all. Like Josh Allen struggled as a rookie. That would be one where I go, okay, well,
rookies struggled, and they're bad. They're terrible as rookies. People in Buffalo call him a bust. Wanted to get rid of him. People in Indy called Peyton Manning a bust when he threw 28 interceptions. And Stroud is not going to do like, say, Andrew Luck or Dak Prescott or Russell Wilson. Prescott and Wilson went in with really talented teams, played well as rookies, and it's just not going to happen here because it's not a very good team.
All right. Wale in Virginia, John, says, my observation from the first preseason game seems like a couple of the quarterbacks threw the ball outside while receivers were expecting the ball inside. I wonder if y'all noticed the same thing, and is it something that would get resolved as they develop chemistry over time? I'm one of those who think it's better for rookie quarterbacks that they should sit before starting. Anyway, I'm very optimistic and bullish on Stroud's development. Thanks, y'all. John, what did you notice from that first preseason game and at camp so far, just in terms of CJ Stroud and the chemistry he's building with his wide receivers?
He's worked hard at it on and off the field. He talks to the wide receivers constantly. I like the way he talks to the defensive players about coverage. Talks to the defensive coaches, but he knows that he is dependent on the wide receivers, not to mention the tight ends too. But he's worked really hard to build a rapport with them.
All right, next one, John. Chris in the ATL, frequent emailer and listener to the podcast. He always has good analogies to go with his questions. Do you know who we should blame regarding the overreactions from many on CJ Stroud's NFL debut? And I guess what he's talking about is people saying, that he struggled, even though he played 2 series. He says we should blame Jeff Bezos. With Amazon, everybody now wants instant gratification right away. And I believe it's translating into our sports teams and players. My question, do you think it's fair that people want CJ Stroud to be an Amazon Prime QB delivering right away on the expectations, or do you have a reasonable time frame that he has to perform as a franchise QB? And if so, what is that? We haven't really talked about that, John, but forget about week 1. What is a successful arc for CJ Stroud look like for you in his rookie year?
Be durable, show improvement over the course of the year. He's going to have bad games, and how he bounces back from those bad games. He's going to have a low rating, and he might get pulled at some point. And but what they want to see, they know he has the ability. They want to see him improve mentally and make good decisions, and of course, know where to go with the ball and be able to adjust on the fly.
Chris also wants to know what's the most random thing that you've ordered on Amazon, John. Do you order stuff on Amazon?
I do. And boy, my wife's asked me to order stuff for her, like certain kind of jelly bean.
Yeah. Like Jelly Bellies, like those kind of jelly beans?
Yeah,
Like,
I can't remember, but
did
I've
they have
ordered
them?
jelly beans for her.
They had them?
I'll tell you something else about jelly beans. I hate the black ones.
Yeah.
And I didn't notice till I started ordering. You can get all black. And I wonder what kind of person could eat all blacks. And then I found out John P. Lopez loves black jelly beans.
Yeah.
Makes me sick.
Does he like Jägermeister too? Did you ask him that? Because that's you've had Jaeger, right, John?
Yep.
Yeah, it's basically Jack. It's a black jelly bean shot, more or less. I mean,
I hate it.
Yeah, I don't like it either. You can also get crunch berries with just the berries, John, with no Captain Crunch in it. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know anything about candy on Amazon except jelly beans.
Okay, jelly beans. Yeah, my weirdest thing that I ordered off of there was a Halloween costume. I ordered my entire Halloween costume for last year. I forget what the name of the character was, but I was part of a skit at work for the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And it was that one dance sequence that they did. I was the guy with the scraggly gray hair, like the Crypt Keeper guy. I forget his name. I've never seen the movie. I only watched the scene on YouTube.
I've never seen the movie either.
You haven't? That shocks me, John, because that's like a cult classic that they play at midnight at all the old theaters.
Yep. I've never been.
Yeah, I haven't seen it
I
either.
know all about it. I've just never seen it.
Yeah. Are you a fan of midnight showings at movie theaters?
Even when I was young and I'd stay up all night, I still didn't go to movies at midnight.
Yeah. I like doing it at River Oaks Theater. I don't know when that's reopening. It's supposed to reopen River Oaks Theater.
It's going to reopen next year. It's going to be spectacular. Oh. I can't wait because we go to a lot of movies there.
Yeah.
Just not Rocky Horror.
Oh, yeah. It's okay. So you're dialed in on this. So you got a time frame for it and everything, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. I walk by it every day on my walks and I look up and I'm like, it's still not close yet. I love that place. That place is cool.
You go to tremendous on the inside. It's going to be different. It's going to be more comfortable. Okay. It's going to have a lot more selections, and the crowds are going to be prolific.
Yeah. Are they going to do reserve seating? Because that's the new thing. You got to have reserve seating.
I don't know. I wish they did. I'd love to have reserve seats.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, John, a couple more. Let's mix in an Astros one. Henry T says, if the playoffs started next week, what's the Astros strategy with the pitching staff?
It'd be Verlander, Fromber, and pray for J.P. France, who is their best pitcher.
Yeah, I think
Christian Javier should be in the bullpen, if anything, because he has been a huge disappointment.
Yeah, he was a disappointment again last night. I said this to Seth today, John. I'm curious your thoughts on it. I don't know who, if they go, let's pretend they advance to they have to play a wild card round. It's probably all hands on deck for those 2 out of 3 games, whatever it is, just so you get to the next round. Hopefully they reach a point in the playoffs, divisional series, and certainly ALCS and World Series where you're running more conventionally. You got 4 starters and everybody else is in the bullpen. Last season, we knew who the 4 starters were. It was Verlander, Fromber, Javier, and Lance McCullers. And then Luis Garcia and Jose Urquidy were the next 2 guys, and they were in the bullpen. And they never, other than the 18-inning game against Seattle, they never had to use those guys because their starters all went deep into games. The bullpen was maybe the best bullpen of any team I've ever rooted for. Everybody was good in the bullpen. They never used Ryan Stanek in the postseason, hardly, because they didn't have to. This year, I think, John, if this is who they are right now, if this is who they are and it's good enough to get to the postseason, those extra 2 starters, whoever they are going to get used a whole hell of a lot more than Urquidy and Garcia did last year, because the trust level for me is so low on all these leverage relievers right now. And I think, and especially if those 2 guys that they do that with are JP France and Hunter Brown, 2 guys that are used to doing that from their minor league stints. I'm with you. I think Javier is worse than both those guys, but I could see Dusty starting Javier because he's got postseason experience, that kind of thing. I'm with you, John. I'm just telling you what I think Dusty's going to do. John's shaking his head for those just listening. I think those extra starters, and even if one of them is Javier, I think they're going to get used a whole hell of a lot more this year for all those reasons.
That could happen. Dusty sticks with those veterans like he sticks with Maldonado. Maldi's 37 years old on Wednesday when we record this. It'll be his last year. He's maybe the worst catcher in baseball, but Dusty's going to keep doing it. And I hope, just because of Javier's experience, unless he turns it around in his last few starts and is better than he's been all season, even when he won 7 games, he was shaky.
Yep.
I would not start him in the playoffs. France is 5-0 with an ERA in the ones in his last 5 starts. And Javier has been terrible. Can't even get out of the 5th inning. Hadn't won a game, has won 1 game, the last start before this one, when he went 5 innings. It had been 2 months and 3 days.
Well, even when he's not giving up hits and runs, his pitch count's getting too high. He goes deep into counts. He gets behind hitters. Like, the average number of pitches he throws to each hitter, I got to imagine, is one of the highest in baseball, because that dude, for whatever reason, even in games where you look up and he's in the 5th inning, he's only given up a run, he's at like 95 pitches. Like, he's not can't be trusted right now. Can't be trusted.
A lot of full counts, a lot of foul balls.
Yeah, a lot of foul ball. And then when he gets the full counts and 3-ball counts on guys, and he's at 8 pitches and he gives up a single, it's like, all right, well, I'm okay with 8 pitches if you get the guy out, but it's putting a lot of guys on base. All right.
Can you imagine if they had started Chas McCormick in center field and Yainer Diaz at catcher all season? Both of them have 16 home runs.
Yeah.
They'd be in the 20s in home runs.
Yeah.
If they had been kept those positions all season.
If Yainer had enough at-bats to qualify, he would have the second best OPS of any catcher in baseball right now.
Wow.
He's already got 1 less home run than Adley Rutschman, who is
put him on the bench.
The next big thing. Yeah, Dusty, man. All right. Well, another story for another time. John, before we get out, do you want to tell the people what the Houstonian has going on to try to benefit the folks over in Hawaii who are suffering from all the wildfires over there?
Yes. The Houstonian, they did this after Harvey for local first responders, and I went over there. They set up these monster barbecue pits outside, and they want you to just pull in, have $10 cash, you get a huge barbecue meal to go, and it's going to go to an organization. It's on their website. I can't remember what it was, World Kitchen something, and they're going to match every dollar, and it goes to first responders in Hawaii, Maui, and I think there's 500 I read over there trying to help. A great thing for Steve Fronterhouse and his staff, and the food, of course, will be great. It's from 10:30 to 1:30 on Friday. Just go through with your $10, get a great meal, and know that that's going for a great cause.
Yeah, absolutely, no question about it. The Steve Fronterhouse and the folks at the Houstonian are the best. So yeah, get on over there on Friday and get a great barbecue lunch, and it all goes to a great cause, and they're matching it. Yeah, it sounds good, doesn't it, John? A lot of protein.
Making me hungry now.
That's okay. And protein on soda weight loss, all good, John. We like that. We like that. John, I enjoyed it, and I'll see you out at practice tomorrow, and I'll see you out at the game at NRG Stadium on Saturday.
I look forward to it as always. Thank you very much, Sean.
All right, good stuff. That's John McClain, the legend, the Hall of Famer, and he joins me each and every episode. This is the Houtopia Football Podcast, starring me and John McClain. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Clicking that subscribe button is huge for us. Download that podcast. You click that subscribe button, you don't have to worry about a damn thing. You just get it, gets sent right to your phone or your iPad or wherever it is you listen to your podcast. We appreciate that. Our guy James Jackson back in the saddle again, our producer back from vacation. So we appreciate James and all he does to get this podcast out to all of you. Each episode, each and every week, 2 episodes a week. And when the regular season starts, we will go to 3 episodes a week. So thank you again for tuning in. This has been the Houtopia Football Podcast. For John McClain, I'm Sean Pendergast. We are out of time, and we will see you next week. Enjoy the game this weekend, everybody.